In this video today, we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions and how to be able to pick the right one to help decrease your pain. Stay tuned. Dr. Orlando Landrum, a Harvard and Cornell trained MD who specializes in interventional pain, regenerative medicine, and neuromodulation techniques. I've helped thousands of patients be able to get their lives back and eliminate their pain. So, we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions in 2020 and what are some of the best resolutions that may help you be able to decrease your pain as well as how to stick to them. So as opposed to talking to you about this in December or in January when everyone's all rosy and going to the gym and dedicated and motivated and ready to go, what I decided to do is to talk to you about this is in February. Why? Because by February, 30% of you guys are on the ropes. You are at the point where you have given up. And we're going to find a way to be able to get you back on track and find out how to be able to biohack your pain and get you back to doing the things that you need to do. So what we're going to talk about today is New Year's resolutions and biohacking your pain. So New Year's resolutions and why we pick those resolutions. So when we take a look at different resolutions that are out there, the number one resolution is being able to get control of your money. Number two resolution is to be able to eat healthier. Number three resolution is to be more active. And all those things can potentially be useful in pain control, particularly the latter two. But at the end of the day, what we need to have an idea about is to understand why are we doing the resolution in the first place? Because that gives us the understanding of how to be able to continue and how to be able to push through when the times get tough. And the number one reason for 45% of people making a resolution is because they're looking to improve the quality of their lives. So there is a why. There is a reason as to why people are making a resolution. The challenge is being able to stick to it and find a way to be able to get to do the things that you like to be able to do. So New Year's resolutions in the context for pain improvement. What are some of the things that are significant and make sense in terms of picking from four different topic areas that may be able to give some degree of benefit? Number one is to start and maintain an exercise regimen or a movement regimen that may be able to improve your pain for a number of different reasons, which we're going to discuss. Number two is to get control of your diet. And although many people think that getting control of your diet is calorie restriction, we're actually going to talk about something a little bit different. Number three is to consider ways to be able to improve your mindset overall. And number four is find ways to be able to stop self-destructive behaviors in order to be able to have a fulfilling 2020 and an improved pain control overall. So let's talk a little bit about New Year's resolutions. As you can kind of see from the aspect of this graph, one of the things that we see is that 92% of people who make a resolution fail. They fail. And only 8% actually are successful. So when does all of this failing happen? It happens typically within the first month, between then and the sixth month that takes place. So this aspect of the end of January, beginning of February is a key time to hone in on how to be able to get a resolution right and how to be able to sustain the course. So why most New Year's resolutions fail are someone else made you promise that you're going to do this and it didn't come from you. Number two is that you want instant gratification and say, you know what, I want it just the way that I want it immediately. Number three is that it's not enough of a reason. And although the patients that have pain, patients that have limitations in function want to be better, sometimes you really have got to kind of put that source of understanding as to what's your why. Why is this so important and how can we be able to deal with it? And when you take a look at the aspect of particularly activity goals, sometimes we pick too difficult of an obstacle to get to when we should have broken that up into more of a piecemeal attack. And so some of the ways to be able to kind of really talk about this is to break this up into the context of a SMART goal. And that's an acronym that stands for a breakdown of how you can really be able to look at different things like, is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it actionable? Is it relevant? And is it time-based? those things allow for you to be able to get your hand and head around the goal a lot better and be able to find a way so that it doesn't just fall by the wayside, but it stays in the front of your mind and allows for you to be able to be successful. So then, as you heard me early on, I talked about biohacking. So exactly what the heck is biohacking? Is it just a fancy term that's talking about computers and stuff and all this kind of thing? No. What we're talking about for biohacking is basically using biology to come up with solutions to improve human functioning and health. Traditionally, it's within the context of performance. But what we're talking about, and particularly for cutting edge integrative pain, is what we look at is how can we be able to partner with you as a person, not as a patient, but as a person, to be able to get your life back. And what are some of the activities and what are some of the things that you can do with a knowledgeable base to be able to hack your condition and improve it? So one of the things to kind of think about is the aspect of the quantified self. And what that means is if you can measure different things that happen to you, you can be able to improve some of those things. And so when we talk about biohacking from that context, there's a lot of different things that are actually applicable. And so things like exercise, nutrition, sleep, mind, and work, all those things we've kind of let exist in sort of a pseudo kind of it comes to us as we will. And there's times when that's a good thing. But when you're trying to make changes in your life, when you're trying to be able to adjust to be able to improve some things, being able to measure it, have an understandable goal, and know how you can stepwise get to that is an invaluable tool and asset to have. So, in that context, what we need to do is measure what matters. So, again, what we need to do is measure what matters. And in so doing, it allows for us to be able to pick out how can we see when we're deviating from the path and how do we know when we're straight, tried and true and we're getting it the way that we should be able to. So some of the things that we want to do is to start small. We don't want to have this big, hairy, audacious goal, which is good at times, but in this context, not so much. We want to have small steps that are incremental in nature that we can get and stack wins. And then the other thing we want to see is how can we track that? And it has to be important to us. And ideally, if you can utilize it and you feel comfortable with using technology, you want to be able to have that automated so that it falls easily and it facilitates into the aspects of your day without there being much disruption. Because if it is disruptive, you're probably not going to do it when time gets tight, when challenges arise, and then your whole measurement for allowing you to be able to say, am I doing well? Getting that closed loop feedback is now gone by the wayside. So those are the reasons for how we can be able to improve our goals and how to be able to get after it and really win in terms of being able to reduce our pain. So back to those four different topics that I mentioned earlier, what are some of the things that you can think about in terms of how to be able to improve your pain? So there's a whole host of different measures. Different things are going to be more important than others for different people. So you might want to be someone who walks. You might want to be someone who lifts. You might want to be someone who does other types of activity that gets you in a better state. But one of the things that may give you some degree of benefit is yoga. And so what we did is we broke this down for each of the different topics that we're talking about how can you measure it, how can you track it, and where are some of the places where that kind of falls apart. So one of the things that you can do is use a simple wearable, something like a Samsung Watch or Apple Watch, to be able to have an idea about you having an activity that you've done. Just having that and being able to reference it is nice. To have the biometric data of knowing that you had a heart rate at a certain amount and then you exceeded another amount and then it got better over the course of time is a useful aspect. But for many people, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't actually touch your heart, your soul, your spirit and say, you know what, I really am starting to feel like I'm making significant gains. So some things you might have to do within that context is to get a little bit more less quantitative and a little bit more qualitative, i.e., you need to put together a logbook that looks at what poses did you do? How did that make you feel? What classes did you go to? What are the things that are challenging? What did you get out of this class versus that class? When are you having a good day? And was it concomitantly that you had a good activity and expression on the mat? Or is it different than that where you had, what you thought was going to be a bad day that turned into a good day? All those things are empowering. And to be able to review that and come back to it allows for you to be able to have an understanding of how it's impacting you, and then particularly put it in the context of your pain and how much more functional you are, allows for you to be able to make those incremental steps that helps you get to where you want to be. One of the things, if you're a techie and you say, hey, you know what, how can we really be able to look at incorporating direct, immediate biofeedback into this, is to look at three different potential options that are out there. There's three different smart mats. One is the aspect of a smart mat, one is the aspect of a glow mat, and one is what's called Terra. It actually looks at your positioning that it feels in terms of your pressure on the mat, and it can tell what dynamic of pose and posture you're in, as well as what your skeletal alignment happens to be. And some can actually give you advice about how much pressure you should apply, how you should align your feet, how you should align your body, or other points of contact that's in place with it so that you can have a better overall experience. So one of the measures of how to be able to deal with exercise and a movement regimen. So let's talk about diet. Most people immediately say, hey, you know what? I'm fat. I got to lose weight. We're not talking about that. And we're not putting that type of energy out there in terms of just difficulty with being able to be better. What we want to talk about is quantifiable terms on how you can be able to improve your pain, as well as how can you be able to be functional. So as opposed to taking this from a negative standpoint, we're going to take this from a positive standpoint and say, okay, we know that certain things that we eat cause an inflammatory response in our body. Now, there are certain things which are kind of universal, and there are certain things that have some idiosyncrasies depending on the person. So what we need to do is, again, track that. And there's a number of different apps that allow for you to be able to do that. One of the ways you can say is, you know what? Hey, look, doc, I'm not a techie. Fine. Get you a food journal and write it out. The problem is that writing out is it takes for you to be dedicated. And you need to know that this is going to be impactful to you. It may decrease your pain by 50%. We're talking about less medications. We're talking about less injections, less procedures. Are you willing to put that time in on the front end in order for you to get a better result on the back end? That's one of the things to potentially consider. If you know that you're not going to write stuff down, like that is not me, then we need to figure out ways on how to be able to automate that. And there are a number of different apps that are out there that can help you with that. So something that's called Suggestic. It's a specific type of app that looks at inflammation and can tell you the dietary foodstuffs and nutritions and supplements that you take, how is it impacting you? And how is it going to be able to help optimize you for a better response? If that aspect of the cost and some other challenges that are associated with that are problematic, there are other different apps that you can utilize, like IF Tracker or the aspect of MyFitnessPal, and just know that you have to come back and do some of the work with understanding about what took place and what happened. So the other aspect is improving your mindset for pain control. And one of the ways to be able to deal with that is something that's called an app that's called Wellatory, that looks at your stress and energy, particularly in relationship to heart rate variability. There's a number of different wearables that are out there, as well as other studies that are looking at heart rate variability, particularly in the context of stress. But those stressors obviously have hormonal changes like cortisol release that can increase and worsen your pain. So if we can be able to improve your overall heart rate variability, as well as other metrics that are in place, it's something that helps with improving your pain that we typically wouldn't normally associate within our control. Number two is, can you be able to improve the aspect of meditation and really be able to look at what your focus is like and how to really be able to improve your overall mindset and energy. And one of the things that may be able to help you do that is something that's called a Muse headband. We actually use them in our own practice. It allows for you to be able to have a simple EEG monitoring that then gives you a corollary when you're getting to a great meditative state that allows for you to be able to have a measure that you can track and trend over a period of time. So another way to be able to improve your overall mindset and be able to improve your pain control. And then finally, one of the ways to be able to say, how can you improve your pain control, is stop doing stupid stuff. There's no other way to say that. Because when we talk about using certain items, elements, issues, they will worsen our pain. So for instance, those of you who are smokers, terrible habit. I'm not going to harp on what it does to the rest of your body, your lungs and everything else. But if you have back or neck pain, it's certainly worsening it. it causes a whole host of breakdowns of the aspect of the disc that sit in between the aspects of the vertebral bodies. And so if you can't control it by trying different techniques, which is easy for me to say, then we need to figure out other ways to be able to improve that. So there's certain wearables that are out there on the market that allow for you to be able to do that. There's different types of apps for traditional smartwatches. There's actually an app that is present on your phone that can be able to help you with something that's called cognitive behavioral therapy to also help you get in the right mindset and find some degree of support. But there's also a really innovative wearable that's called Smart Stop. And Smart Stop is a wearable that has replaceable nicotine cartridges that are placed at the element of the wearable, and it releases at your times of worst challenges. So if you had and you followed this, a traditional patch that you would place on, you would place it on and it would just be a continuous slow release and it wouldn't make much of a difference. But that's not how many people have their cravings. It's cyclical in nature. So what we see is that you have a peak and you're doing great, no problem, and then all of a sudden you have this trough and this downgraded piece which gives you a problem and an issue. What this allows for you to be able to do is to time when your troughs are and for you to have less utilization of nicotine, but nicotine that keeps you above that level that really just has you in that despairing times. So it helps you reduce your overall nicotine use, get you away from the aspect of cigarettes that are causing you problems with your interdiscal elements of your back and neck, and allow for you to have improved pain control. One of the other things that's innovative, but it's still not quite fully fleshed out, is there are researchers at Purdue and I want to say Carnegie Mellon as well, that are looking at a closed feedback system that looks at, for those individuals that use opioids and have challenges with being able to use it appropriately, how to be able to deliver Narcan, which is a reversal medicine, by measuring things that go on with the aspect of their breathing and their blood pressure, and it automatically gives a release that keeps people safe. Now, do we want to have individuals using opioids excessively? No, but this is a measure on how to be able to reduce mortality and morbidity from opioid use overall. So when we look at 2020, one of the things we want to do is to figure out how can we quantify the things that are important to us, understand our why, be able to measure it, track it, and have different tools that allow for us to have successful strategies at taking control of our pain, biohacking it, and letting us get back to doing the things that we want to be able to do. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and also give us a comment on the question of the day. Continue to look out for other videos that really help empower patients and give understanding about technology and treatment options that help patients get their lives back and be able to eliminate their pain. Thank you so much and have a great day.